Lord of the Rings, movie versus books. The Lord of the Rings has etched itself in giant letters into the hearts of fantasy fans, who first succumbed to the magic of Professor Tolkien's books, only to open their hearts decades later to Peter Jackson's film adaptation. Both versions are amazing. The books have more room for detail and a more complex history of Middle-earth, while the films offer visual splendor and an epic experience. So sit back and join us as we explore the key differences between the Lord of the Rings books and their film adaptation. Sauron is a massive eye on a tower. When the name of the Dark Lord of Mordor, Sauron, is mentioned, most people picture a giant, lidless, flaming eye with a cat-like pupil atop the Tower of Barad-dûr, because that's exactly how he is portrayed in the film trilogy. But in the books, Sauron actually has a physical body, and the eye is more a metaphor for his evil and a manifestation of the terror seen by those who encounter him in visions, such as in Galadriel's mirror or through the Palantir. His servants wear the eye as a symbol on their shields, but Sauron himself, after regaining a form, did not become a giant floating eye. If you don't believe us, believe Gollum. He was tortured in Mordor and told Frodo and Sam that he saw Sauron's black hand with 4 fingers. And where there's a hand, there must be a body attached to it. Sauron's eyes are described as terrible, full of malice and hate, able to see through to your every weakness and flaw. But they are just eyes, proportional to the size of a Maya spirit. The film The Return of the King introduced us to the seemingly insane steward Denithor, who ignores every warning that an enemy army is approaching the city he governs. He refuses to light the beacons for aid or summon the armies of Gondor, instead sending his last son Faramir on a doomed assault against Osgiliath with only 100 riders, despite it being swarmed with tens of thousands of orcs, Easterlings, and Southrons. During the assault, Denithor calmly sits at a table, has Pippin sing him a Hobbit song, and disgustingly eats tomatoes. When the wounded Faramir returns, Denithor is shocked at what happened, starts screaming for everyone to abandon their posts, and is eventually smacked down by Gandalf in front of his men. In the book, Denithor is portrayed as an intelligent and wise ruler of Minas Tirith, who has studied the enemy for a long time and foresaw many of his moves. He summoned Gondor's vassal armies, and the beacons were already lit before Gandalf and Pippin even arrived at the city, which was preparing for siege, while women, elderly, and children were evacuated to safety. When Faramir approached the city, Denithor sent cavalry to assist him. We later learn he used a Palantir to look into Sauron's thoughts, but Sauron was too powerful and used the stone against him, which caused Denethor to age prematurely. Still, he remained sane until the apparent death of his son broke his spirit. Even then, he wasn't so mad as to run 100 meters engulfed in flames and leap off a cliff. In the film The Return of the King, during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, when the city is nearly lost and Rohan's army is being defeated, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas arrive on a ship, with them the army of the dead, which slaughters orcs, Oliphants, Easterlings, and Southrons, essentially winning the battle on their own. In the book, the dead do not reach Minas Tirith. Aragorn summons them on the paths of the dead and leads them to the Stone of Erech, where he asks them to follow him to Pelargir and cleanse the region of Sauron's forces. The main Umbar fleet was docked there, and the dead attacked. The enemy, terrified by their presence, jumped overboard in panic. Aragorn then declared their oath fulfilled and released them. Many men from Lebenin, Pelargir, Lamadan, freed slaves, and other Gondorians joined Aragorn, boarded the captured ships, and sailed to Minas Tirith, where they reinforced Gondor's and Rohan's armies. Everyone remembers the sound of the horn and the arrival of elven warriors from Lothlorien at Helm's Deep in the Two Towers film. delivering Elrond's message that elves and men once fought and died side by side. And indeed, in the film, none of the elves survived the battle. But in the book, no elves came to Rohan's aid. While the elven Captain Haldir did exist, he never left the Golden Wood of Lothlorien during the War of the Ring. At the time of the battle, Lothlorien was itself under attack by orcs from Dol Guldur, so they couldn't have sent help. Rohan thus faced Saruman's 10,000-strong army of Uruk-hai alone. The garrison of Helm's Deep, composed mostly of older and very young men, was reinforced only by fighters from Edoras, led by King Theodan. In contrast, Aoma, a Rohan warrior, was present at the Battle of Helm's Deep from the very beginning in the book. In the film, Grima Wormtongue banishes him, and Aoma roams the plains until Gandalf finds him and leads him to the fortress. In the book, Aoma was arrested, and once Gandalf and company freed Theoden from Saruman's influence, the king released his nephew and joined the rest at the stronghold. During the battle, Aoma stood beside Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas on the Deeping Wall. At dawn on the 5th day, Rohan's marshal and Lord of the Westfold, Erkenbrand, arrived with Gandalf. Frodo left for Rivendell right away. Although in the Fellowship of the Ring movie it might seem like only a few months passed between Bilbo's farewell party and Frodo's departure from the Shire, in the book, 17 years go by. During that time, Gandalf visits Frodo several times, then disappears for 9 years before returning to reveal that Frodo is the bearer of the One Ring. Even then, Frodo doesn't immediately leave for Rivendell. To leave the Shire unnoticed and avoid causing a stir like Bilbo did with his sudden departure, Frodo sells Bag End and moves to a small house in Crickhollow, near Bucklebury. The whole process takes several months, and Frodo is 50 years old by the time he finally departs. Pippin, for example, is only 28 at the time and considered a youngster, as hobbits come of age at 33. During Bilbo's 111th birthday party, Pippin is only 11, but he likely caused just as much mischief as he does in the film. This brings us to the Hobbit's journey from the Shire to Bree. In the film, the Hobbits hide from the Nazgul and escape via a ferry at Bucklebury, reaching Bree with relatively little trouble. In the book, however, their journey is far more adventurous. They enter the Old Forest, where they're captured by Old Man Willow and later rescued by Tom Bombadil. He welcomes them into his home, where he lives with the river spirit Goldberry, and even demonstrates to Frodo that the ring has no power over him. Later, the Hobbits are captured by a Barrow-wight and saved once again by Bombadil, who banishes the spirit from the barrow and rescues the Hobbits. From the treasures he finds there, each Hobbit receives a long dagger inlaid with gold and red serpents. Thanks to this blade, Merry is later able to stab the Witch King of Angmar at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, cutting through his sinew, because these daggers were forged in the North Kingdom during the dark days of Angmar, and no other weapon could have delivered such a wound to the Lord of the Nazgul. In both the book and film, the Antmot takes place, where the Ents deliberate at length on whether or not to go to war. However, the outcomes differ significantly. In the movie, the Ents initially decide not to go to war, and only change their minds when Treebeard sees the devastation caused by Saruman's forces. In the book, the Ents are roused and choose war immediately, openly marching to war for the first time in 1,000 years, and head straight for Isengard. From the ashes a fire shall be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken, the crownless again shall be king. In the film The Return of the King, Elrond has the shards of Narsil reforged into Anduril, only after Arwen chooses to stay in Middle-earth and live a mortal life. Elrond brings Anduril to Aragorn at the Paths of the Dead and advises him to summon a force more deadly than any that walk the earth. In the book, Aragorn receives Andúril immediately after the Council of Elrond when he joins the Fellowship. Elven smiths in Rivendell reforge Elendil's sword, and sunlight gleams red on its blade while moonlight shines coldly. Aragorn names it Andúril, Flame of the West. Later in Lothlorien, Galadriel gives Aragorn a new scabbard made to fit his sword, imbued with elvish enchantments so that no blade drawn from it could be stained or broken, even in defeat. In the film's climax of the Fellowship of the Ring, Aragorn slaughters dozens of orcs with his sword and has an epic one-on-one duel with Lurtz the Uruk-hai, severing his hand and head. In the book, Aragorn doesn't kill a single orc. Instead, the brave ranger searches for Frodo after he flees from Boromir but fails to find him. After tracking Frodo's trail through the forest, he hears the sounds of battle and rushes toward them. He finds a dying Boromir pierced by many arrows, surrounded by 20 dead orcs. Aragorn sits with Boromir, holding his hand and weeping. Legolas and Gimli then arrive, having also slain many orcs in the woods. But Aragorn records a kill count of 0 for Aemon Hen. Instead of the notorious question, where was Gondor when the Westfold fell? We should ask, where was Aragorn when his friends were fighting and dying at Aemon Hen? One of the biggest changes in the film compared to the book is the complete removal of the elf Glorfindel and the replacement of his role with Aragorn's love interest, Arwen. In the books, Arwen plays a more ethereal role, more of a distant prize that Aragorn earns by defeating Sauron than an active participant. Her story is expanded only in the appendices of The Return of the King. In the movie, Arwen arrives on horseback to help Aragorn, and the hobbits escape the Nazgul, summoning a flood to sweep away the wraiths. Later, Elrond reveals that Arwen is dying and her fate is bound to the ring, though it's never fully explained what that means. In the book, Glorfindel helps the hobbits and Aragorn. Frodo rides alone to the river, where the flood is summoned by Elrond, and the water takes the shape of horses thanks to Gandalf. Interestingly, early drafts of the Two Towers film had Arwen fighting at Helm's Deep to create a love triangle with Aragorn and Éowyn. However, negative feedback led to that plotline being cut, and Haldir was added in her place. Arwen was also supposed to have a bigger, undefined role in The Return of the King, which was eventually reduced to the aforementioned ring connection. After the destruction of the One Ring and the fall of Sauron in the film The Return of the King, the hobbits return peacefully and uneventfully to the Shire after Aragorn's coronation and wedding, and nothing seems to have changed. Maybe the hobbits got even chubbier. In the book, however, the departure of the Rangers to war leaves the Shire largely unprotected, allowing Saruman's spies and henchmen to infiltrate and almost take over. After escaping from Isengard, where the Ents were guarding him, Saruman travels to the Shire with Grima Wormtongue to establish a new stronghold there. When Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin return, they find the Shire in turmoil. A rebellion ensues, and the Battle of Bywater takes place, in which Saruman's men are defeated. Wormtongue stabs Saruman, and a hobbit shoots Wormtongue. In the extended edition of the film, Saruman is killed by Wormtongue and falls from the tower onto a spiked wheel. Legolas then shoots Wormtongue. To at least give viewers a glimpse of the Shire's downfall, the film shows a few flashes of its burning in Galadriel's mirror as a possible future. Although Sam Gamgee may look like he could eat a mountain of lembas, even behind Frodo's back, he would never actually do it, and Frodo knows that in the books. Their friendship remains strong throughout the entire journey to Mordor, and we dare say Frodo would never fully trust Gollum to the point of turning on Sam, not even with the ring's influence. In the book, Frodo and Sam enter the tunnel of Cirith Ungol together, where Shelob dwells, and are only separated when Gollum attacks Sam. In the film, however, Frodo instantly believes Gollum's claim that Sam has eaten all their lembas and left crumbs on his cloak, implying Sam was too dumb to clean up. But anyone who's ever been starving knows there wouldn't be a single crumb left. The filmmakers used this plot point to add more drama to the journey through Mordor and make Sam's return to Frodo more emotional. Now let's talk about Denethor's second beloved son, Faramir. In the Two Towers movie, the screenwriters made him a bit of a jerk, much like Boromir, wanting to take Frodo, Sam, and the ring to Minas Tirith to prove his worth to his father. In the book, however, Faramir is the exact opposite of Boromir. He understands the ring's evil and tells Frodo he would not take it even if he found it by chance. He treats Frodo, Sam, and even Gollum with kindness and respect. They are never his prisoners. In the movie, Faramir only has a change of heart after Sam's emotional speech and releases them. In the Return of the King film, Faramir obeys his father blindly and seeks his approval for every action, even embarking on a suicidal mission. In the book, Faramir openly disagrees with Denethor and defies him. He does go on another mission, but it's dangerous, not outright suicidal. One of the most iconic lines from the film version of Helm's Deep, which fans quote endlessly, is Theodan's question about the lack of help from a certain ally. Where was Gondor when the Westfold fell? But this quote never appears in the book. It's a line written specifically for the movie. We owe that piece of memorable dialogue to Peter Jackson and his screenwriters. And those are the selected differences between the book and the films. Which change upset you the most? And which one do you understand or even appreciate? Can you think of any others? Let us know in the comments.